BerryDunn Gureckis.
And I'm Alec Weibel.
And you're listening to In the Spotlight, BerryDunn's very own podcast where you get to know each member of the Financial Services Practice Group. Today, we're joined by Anthony Cosentino, who we affectionately call Tony. Welcome to the podcast, Tony.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Why don't you start off first by telling us a little bit about your role here at the firm?
So my role at the firm, I can start with a little bit of my background. I started here in 2020 full-time. It came off of an internship in 2019 after I kind of progressed through college. But after starting full-time, I worked in a variety of industries that BerryDunn kind of works in and ultimately landed in the financial services group. And so I primarily work with banking institutions above 500 million and above $1 billion in assets. So I do a lot of work surrounding FDICIA internal controls. And then outside of that, I also do a lot of work with employee benefit plans in the summertime, as well as a few internal control reviews on some trust engagements that we have as well.
That's awesome, Tony. So, it kind of sounds like you have all sorts of stuff going on in your day-to-day work at BerryDunn. But what really kind of drew you to the accounting field when you were in college? And, how did ending up being an accountant compare to what you were thinking when you were a little bit younger as far as what you wanted to be one day?
So I actually entered college undeclared. I didn't really know what I wanted to be outside of a professional hockey player was my main goal. I went through the general business courses at UNH, and I ended up doing really well in the beginner accounting courses. And so I actually had a professor who reached out to me and just was gauging my interest on considering the accounting major as a career option, something I never really thought of before. But as I kind of progressed through these beginning accounting courses, I kind of went down to the office and changed my major, and I haven't really looked back since.
So it sounds like you took a chance on a great mentor, and he led you right here to the accounting field, and then ultimately led you here to BerryDunn. So how in that role that you had and in that path that you took, how did it lead you here to BerryDunn?
It's a great question. And yeah, I've had great mentors, throughout ever since I started my career in accounting, starting with that professor reaching out to me and taking the time to really talk about my interests and just gauge where I wanted to go with the career path. But I actually found BerryDunn through some connections that I had already made, working, going through college and going to career fairs. And I actually did an internship in 2019, as I had mentioned, and that's kind of where that was my first experience in diving into the accounting profession. And from that point, like you mentioned, having great mentors, I noticed right away as an intern, the development, the focus on development here at this firm really drew me in, and I kind of knew right away that this is where I wanted to be. I had kind of mentors or people I looked up to as an intern right at my first day here, and I have no regrets. I couldn't have asked for a better place to end up.
So I'm hearing that mentorship is very important to you. It's sort of what led you into the accounting field. It's what led you here to BerryDunn. Can you talk a little bit more about how mentors here, while you've been here at BerryDunn, have impacted your career, have impacted you being able to develop yourself and move up in your career? And then also how you're able to give back and become a mentor to others.
Yeah, absolutely. So outside of just the general focus on development that we have at the firm, I was lucky to have two really good mentors since I started full-time, that they were kind of like my go-to contacts. If I had a question, a technical question about accounting, or just a general question of where do I need to be at the firm right this second, where do I want to be 5 years from now? Both have been great resources for me that I can't thank enough. And it really instilled those values into me. And then I knew I wanted to in turn become a mentor after that. And I've actually now at this time, I have 3 mentees that I've been kind of able to relay all that information that's been given to me to them, and watching them grow has been a really rewarding experience. So it's kind of twofold. We have great people above us, and the people below us are just as great, and we get to, all help each other move forward, it's an awesome experience.
That's great stuff, Tony. That's awesome. Well, I couldn't help but notice a little earlier you mentioned you wanted to be a hockey player when you grew up. So these days, can we find you out on the ice at all outside of work or anything like that?
Yep, you sure can. Hockey's one of those sports where you never truly retire. You never really hang them up. So I still go out when it's cold enough. I'll be skating on the pond with some of my friends if I can find some time in the winter. And then there's men's leagues from summertime throughout the winter. So whenever I can get the chance to be on the ice and, experience that camaraderie outside of BerryDunn, it's a yes for me. I'm always out there when I can.
That's awesome. That sounds like a lifelong skill that you'll be able to use for the foreseeable future. So that's great. Well, I think we can, kind of wrap this podcast up with a little game we have. It's called Schmores. And this game works by basically taking your Mount Rushmore of things. So, as we all know, Mount Rushmore technically has, 4 presidents on their faces, the 4 of them up there. So we can just do 3 or 4 of your top blank. But today we were thinking, what are your top, your Mount Rushmore of Excel functionalities? Being the good accountants we are, we live and breathe Excel. So what are some of your favorite Excel functionalities today?
Perfect. Yeah, I definitely have quite a few. When I first started, I probably only knew 2 or 3 Excel functionalities. And, since I started, and I now know quite a few. But I think my top 4 will probably start off with pivot tables. I've definitely used those quite a bit. And then secondly, I'd probably move into some conditional formatting. I'd nerd out with that function as much as I can. And then a simple one, I know we all kind of use this one, but just having the filter, right? It's a quick access right on my quick toolbar. I tend to be filtering data. We go through a lot of data, so that's a nice one to have readily available. And then the 4th one that I have is kind of one I stumbled upon, but I will say proceed with caution, because it's the F4 button and it will repeat any previous action that you've done. But that includes if you delete something out, it will end up deleting the information that you are currently selected. So it's definitely a great time efficiency function, but use it with caution.
Well, Tony, you may be careful. You might have just volunteered to do the next Excel training, since it sounds like you are really proficient in these Excel applications.
I don't know about that. I think I got a ways to go there, but we'll see. We'll see what the future holds.
Well, there you have it. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time on the next episode of In the Spotlight.